As you know, the Meat Eater live tour is on April 23rd through May 5th. Chances are in a town near you. What you may not know is you can win tickets to each of these events just by going to a backcountry hunters and anglers pint night. There's going to be a pint night in each of these towns: San Diego, Salt Lake City, Tempe, Anaheim, Boise, Sacramento, Missoula, Portland, Tacoma, where you can compete in Meat Eater trivia and win not only tickets to the show, but a chance to be on stage with all of us. So get your butt to a pint night, and we'll see you on stage.
Hey, everybody, it's Friday. The Quarantine-Cast is coming at you. I'm here in a tiny room in Bozeman, Montana, and Phil is in the same tiny room he's been in all week. Say hey, Phil.
Hello, we made it through the week.
We did it. Well, the last day of the week. You got one more day to go, and then you got a weekend. You can do whatever it is you can do outside. I suggest that you spend the day outside. Phil, do you have any plans for the weekend that might include going outside?
I don't, but I will absolutely be making them because I am getting a little stir crazy, and I think the weather is supposed to be nice in Bozeman, Montana.
I think so. So we'll report back to you on Monday what we did over the weekend. That was very productive, but I feel like we've had a productive week. We've told a lot of stories. We have launched the great hand turkey contest of 2020 that hopefully will distract all of you. I'd like to see, I was very much enjoyed when we did the contest from episode 100, how many of you kind of like gathered around the table to draw pictures of Phil. I felt like Phil brought you together. Phil's voice face brought you together. So let's let the hand turkeys bring you together and get you into this weekend. It should be nice weather for everybody. Spring is kind of creeping up on us. Screw the coronavirus. Screw COVID-19. We're going to keep moving on. We're going to give you a full slate of shows next week, so we're excited about that. But this week, we got to get to one of my favorite stories of all time. Phil, you missed this story, but you're going to love it, man. It's a barn burner. We got Cole Kramer from Adventure Mountain Hunts up in Alaska. He does all types of hunts on Kodiak and elsewhere. He's one of my favorite people, one of my better friends in the world, and we've had some adventures together. Also, DJ Bell, my good buddy from Austin, Texas, formerly a coworker of mine, but still a very good friend. We all went to Kodiak, Alaska in search of blacktail deer, and we had just about one of the craziest adventures I've been a part of. We got stuck. We got snowed on. We got 80-mile-an-hour winds. We hiked 30 miles with 100-pound packs. We went through some crazy stuff, which somehow, some way, benefits us during this quarantine. Those hardships turn out to be good lessons for what we're doing right now. So that's something you're going to want to listen to. Phil, all I need to know from you is, are you ready for this show?
Yes, please, let's start it.
Go! Oh, hey, Cole Kramer. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing great, Ben O'Brien. How are you?
You're coming to me straight from Kodiak, Alaska. Is that correct?
Correctamundo.
What are you drinking? You drinking coffee?
I'm drinking some coffee. This is
that Black Rifle coffee?
It's specially dark roast, murdered out Black Rifle coffee.
Okay. Are you gonna talk in that accent the whole time, or are you gonna?
No, it's just when we talk about coffee.
Oh, only coffee. DJ Bell from Austin, Texas. Say hey, buddy.
Hey, buddy.
Now, we're all together. We're from various different backgrounds. You guys are both from the great state of Kansas. Is that correct?
That's right.
Yeah, we're both proud Kansas members.
Members of Kansas. Now,
yep.
You guys want to go ahead and... you guys grew up in small towns that were very close to each other, right?
Yes, we did. I grew up in Pratt, Kansas. And DJ, go ahead and tell the audience where you grew up.
I grew up about 30 miles from Pratt. Nearest town maybe had about 15 people in it. Went to high school in Medicine Lodge, Kansas.
Wow. That's unbelievable. And you found yourselves at one point some years ago together in a tent on Kodiak Island an 80-mile-an-hour windstorm.
Yeah, I knew we had a special bond. When we got in those close quarters, some people would be real intimidated by a person you don't know, but I could just tell by DJ and his mannerisms that he was a good guy.
You could
and
tell.
Then the truth came out. We're basically brothers.
Yep. Would you reflect that, DJ?
Yeah, Cole and I exhibit some rugged handsomeness that you can only find in South Central Kansas.
That's true. It's very true.
Yeah.
It's not even bragging. It's just facts.
I
think it's a soil content thing there with wheat, corn, and such.
A lot of pesticides. Low to middling IQ, but handsome. Broad at the shoulders.
Strong backs.
Yeah, your ancestors got halfway to the west and then gave up. And it's like, we'll stay in Kansas. So you should be proud of that. Be very proud of that. Now I'm drinking a White Claw, so I'm feeling a little bit hyped up here. DJ, you're playing like you're at home with your kids during the quarantine?
I am. It's 4:00 in the afternoon here, so I'm still clear liquids at this point in time. I need to wait a couple hours before I partake in anything. I got a lot of daddying to do the rest of the day.
Yeah,
Not me.
Ben's actually in his child's room right now drinking White Claws, and it's actually 3:00 there.
That's true.
So,
Yeah.
so up in Montana, they get the jump on things.
But yeah, people. I need to entertain myself, if anything else. There's no way to know. But we're all gathered here today. Sound like I'm at church. We're all gathered here today to tell us a particular story. What the THC Daily Quarantine-Cast is about, really, among other things, is allowing me to drink White Claw while talking about awesome hunting stories with my buddies. And so, and I imagine that's entertaining, at least to some level. So today we're going to tell, I think, what I would say is the most entertaining story of all the stories I have to tell. And that is a trip to Kodiak, Alaska in search of black-tailed deer, which are not hard to find on the island of Kodiak, Alaska. And let's just start with Cole. Cole, give us a rundown of your guiding service, what brought you to Kodiak, because you brought us to Kodiak. And so we should probably start with how you came to be there and what you do there.
Well, I don't want to get too drawn out here and down a bunch of rabbit holes, but just so everyone knows, that is not coming from my mic. It's coming from Ben's chip bag there while
That's
I'm
popcorn.
trying to explain popcorn.
That's popcorn.
Bag.
I'm just being so entertained by your story that I'm...
Well, I've been up in Kodiak for 17 years. At that point, I believe I was there, I think I'm going on 18 years. I don't know. But at that point, I think you guys came in 2016, I believe.
That's right.
And I started my guide service, I don't even know, probably in 2007-ish. I really don't know. It's been a while. But regardless, one of my main hunts I do is Sitka blacktail deer. And when Mr. Ben O'Brien and I met through Yeti, that was one of the things he said he wanted to do. So you put together a trip through Yeti with some of your finest individuals that work there. Yes. I would say probably the finest individuals, and came out, tested a few products, and I remember asking you guys before you came in. I said, this is gonna be late season. It was, I believe, after Thanksgiving, and we have the very high risk of waterways and ocean bays freezing up if things turn south. And I said, this could get real western. And Ben said, that's fine. I want these guys to see what it's all about. Let's throw it at them. Let's do it. Let's do the rough one. And so I think that's kind of what
I remember saying that, but also, DJ, maybe you could back me up on this. I do remember Cole saying, like, this waterway here that we're hunting near has never frozen in my lifetime.
Do you remember that,
DJ?
Has never frozen. No one's ever gotten sick. And don't worry, you'll never see a bear on this trip.
Yeah, he opened up with these planes have never crashed.
Now, wait a second. You're acting like everything you're saying actually happened. So, I mean, we can't. Don't get too reckless with the facts here.
No. None of that happened. Cole is one of the most, in all seriousness, we have a hard time with seriousness here. But in all seriousness, Cole is one of the most capable backcountry guides of any kind that I've ever run across. And I knew that going into it, both by reputation and by just talking to him and knowing what this hunt would be. But we had some products we wanted to test. That's neither here nor there. But we wanted to test them in some of the most adverse conditions possible. So my birthday is actually December 2nd, and my birthday was on the second day of this trip, I think. So we must have left out the last day of November.
That sounds about right. Yeah.
And if you don't know about the last day of November in Kodiak, Alaska, that's not the most pleasant time to be traipsing around outside. Is it, Cole?
No, it can get pretty harsh. If you had, it's very typical in November, especially getting into December. You can get some extremely high northwest winds, westerly winds, and then you better be in a pretty good spot to be able to take those kind of winds. Otherwise, you could get absolutely destroyed with, on the low end of 45, 50 mile an hour winds, and on the upper ends of, 90 to 100 mile an hour winds. So kind of have to have your act together if you're going to go out that late in the year and tent camp.
And DJ had, to this point, what was you had some hunting experience, but nothing like this, right?
Yeah, at that point in time, I hadn't done any backcountry hunts. So this is the first time flying into the spot, hiking a couple miles back to where we were going to be for a few days. I didn't know what to expect because I knew I couldn't trust either you or Cole to give me the straight lowdown. So it was really...
Why in the world would he say that?
That's weird. What a weirdo. DJ was there as he was behind many of the groundbreaking products that Yeti had put out to that point. And DJ and another member of the product team, Derek, were there to both take part in the hunt, but also kind of get an idea of what Cole would use, for these trips, because they are, it's a pretty intense trip. So Cole, could you give him a rundown of kind of what the trip entails from takeoff to landing, and then the hunt?
Yeah, so, some of my hunts, we do a wide variety of things, but on this particular one, we're really wanting to test some stuff. We go out to a remote location. I try to get into some spots where not a lot of people like to go. And on this particular deal, we were actually airdropping some gear and throwing stuff out of the airplane and seeing how it would hold up. And everything held up just fine as usual. And, then we hike up several miles to where we camp and then just stay out there. And I kind of want to be, right in the middle of everything and not have to go too far from camp if you don't really want to. But sky's the limit out there, obviously, as you could see. But typically that time of year, deer, if there's plenty of snow, they're being pushed off the mountains and down into the flats, or just down lower elevations or on beaches. And I think that we definitely experienced that with the amount of snow and cold. The deer were definitely on survival mode at that point. They were pushed down to the flats and heavy feeding was going on.
Yeah, it was of the most impressive sights to look at across the kind of the hummocks, the flats, and where we camped, and to see, like a depression. You'd say a field, but it wasn't a field. Like an open meadow full of deer with hundreds of blacktail deer in it. It was quite a sight to see. But when we arrived, the idea is to take that float plane from a dock in Kodiak and fly it and land in you'd call it a lagoon, Cole?
Yeah, lagoon, waterway area.
Yeah, landed in a waterway area after airdropping all the gear in, and then we jumped off the plane. And DJ, you could probably attest, we immediately jumped off the plane and there was black-tailed deer on the beach.
Yeah, I remember one of our pilots wanting to chase down a deer with a handgun at some point, which was
that seems reckless. Come on, that seems reckless. I
which is
think
an
he
excellent
maybe.
start to the trip.
I think he said he wanted to, but he didn't actually do that.
He did have designs, and if you'll know, like Alaskan floatplane pilots, Alaskan pilots of most sorts, on single engine aircraft are a little bit. You have to be a little bit crazy to do that job. You're not just doing that as a leisure activity. You got to have a screw loose, and there was a few pilots. The pilots we had, they had their screws loose in the right spots.
Well, and I can't really afford the pilots who don't have have all their nuts and bolts tightened down really good. So mine are typically the ones that
this will come back. Loose. This will come back in the story because one of the reasons why we actually got off the beach and back to Kodiak was because we had a few pilots that were brave enough or dumb enough, depending on how you look at it, to come and get us when a lot of pilots wouldn't have been able to pull it off. And so that's that's probably where this story will end. But so we hike in. We had a photographer with us, the great and powerful Ben Potter of Canna Outdoors. He was shooting a bunch of photos. We love Ben Potter. I wish he was with us. So basically we hike in. I don't know how many miles we hike in from the landing spot there. Cole?
20, 30.
40, 50.
A ways.
We could make it up.
I know, that's what I'm doing. Yeah, we're making it up. Okay.
So we hike in.
Well, let's be like everyone else and just make up large numbers. Yes.
And there we saw 17 200-inch deer frolicking about. They were blacktails. But so we're hunting blacktail deer. And the first thing we had to do, we already had one of our guys, Cole had sent in to go ahead and set up the camp. So when we got there, tents are set up, cook tents set up. Mm-hmm. And I'll give DJ a chance to describe the camp setup, where we were, what it looked like.
Yeah, if I remember right, we were right along the edge of the river that never freezes and had one master tent that I would describe as probably like, I don't know, like the nicest home you could find, master bedroom where Cole got to sleep. The poor guy that Cole brought along with us was in a tent that I think he could almost crawl into. I'm pretty sure his feet had to stick out the end of it. And then the rest of us were all congregated in a mess of a tent that was comfortable enough to get by.
Now, anyone else who's listening who actually knows about base camp tents, they were in two Barney's Bombshell tents. One of them was a 10 by 10 and the other one was I believe a Kodiak condo, which are of the highest of quality tents for all campers that come to Alaska. But for the city folk that come sometimes from Austin who have, let's just say desk jobs and steal staplers for a living or something, it could be a little harsh on them, let's just say.
No, that's understood. I remember DJ is a very tall individual. DJ, what are you, 6'4", 6'5", as it goes?
We'll say 6'4".
I give you 6'4". I'm an even 6 foot in that case. Very average height person. And we had the other gentleman, Derek, was in our tent too, and we slept 3 to a tent, and it was fine. And then we would kind of saunter over to Cole's little shanty there, and inside there he would be cooking various Mountain House meals, making coffee. It's kind of like his own little, continental breakfast area of the hotel. Cole knows how to get it done. Is that right?
So here's the thing. By the cook tent, we need space for everyone to sit in, and there's really only room for one cot in there, and that's mine. And someone has to get up very early to get things rocking and rolling. We got to get the water going. You got to start cooking early. It wasn't just Mountain House meals. I think I made you guys eat Mountain House until you killed a deer, and then we started eating deer.
Yeah, we did have a lot of good, delicious deer meals. But the tent, you imagine the Cole's Palace full of roughly, at this point, like what, 5 dudes in there, 6 men in a small tent. Am I getting that count right? Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, I think so. 6 of us.
Six
and
of
there's
us.
a wood stove. We had I think a Faru wood stove I put in the tent. So
Yeah, which it's nice in there. And so that's our camp setup. That's what we hike into when we hike along this ridge and along and into our camp. And it was cold the first morning we went in there, but it was generally comfortable when we hiked in. I remember thinking, what a beautiful place, snow on the ground, very, very low chance of seeing bears. No high winds when we landed. It was a generally calm and a nice time. We hike into camp. We get set up. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful spot Cole has picked out for us. There's deer everywhere. We can glass deer from camp. I remember thinking this is going to just be an idyllic breeze. We're going to come in here and we're going to get the job done and come out with a bunch of meat and cool stories. And Cole, you could explain, like, the idea is to drop camp and then float out. Is that correct? You drop rafts in there?
yes, that's correct.
So you drop rafts in and float out on this river, which will come to be important later in the story. But the first morning we get up and go hunting. It's again a crisp, cold morning, but the sun, nice morning. We hiking up a ridge, and we're looking at across the hummock flat that kind of gently rolls into, one of the many mountain ranges on Kodiak Island. And we see many, many, many bucks running around, don't we? Didn't we, DJ?
Tons of deer. I know we split up that day. I think you went with Cole and Potter, and then Derek and I went with, was it Aaron?
Aaron,
Cole?
yep, that's right.
Yeah. And we just saw so many deer that as it started to snow later in the day, they really popped well against that white snow.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't long, Cole, before we got into something, right? It was day one.
Yeah, it was day one, and I remember looking out there, seeing a pretty decent buck, and, from our horizon, I thought, okay, well, let's just make our way out into this flat and get a little closer to this buck. Each of you have 2 deer tags, so we've got 6 bucks to potentially take. So, there's no reason to mess around. Might as well start moving towards some deer. So that's what we did, and I remember, just kind of making our way off there and heading out towards not the first buck, but the largest buck we had spotted from that area. So I'll let you continue on if you remember.
Yeah, look, the big part of this hunt comes after it was over, but I would just say, as to not, belabor the actual deer being killed, we see a buck, make a move, get in tight, and it's freezing cold by this point. The wind's blowing, my hands are freezing.
Lots of snow's coming down at this point.
Lots of snow's coming down at this point. It's a tough, we're not too, it's a 125-yard shot, maybe, something like that, once we get in, tucked in, and we're in these hummocks. Hummocks, if you don't know, are kind of just undulations in the ground where there's a little micro hill and then a depression and another micro hill, and it just kind of goes up and down and up and down. And so it's kind of perfect if you can get it right to sneak up on, stalk up on an animal. So we stalked up on the first deer, and I look at it, and from what I know about Kodiak blacktail deer, I know it's a giant.
Well, not to step in, but as we made our way closer to this buck and started to sneak in on this first particular buck we looked at, in my peripheral off to my left, I noticed a rack of which looked like a bush sticking up, and it happened to be a much larger buck. And so that's when we're like, look off to the left, right over here. And this buck was laying down in a depression. All you could see was his horn sticking up. And he was a substantially larger buck than the buck we were actually going after. So then we didn't really have to shift or anything. It was just we had to pay attention that Casey was looking towards us. And so that's when we got set up on him. And like you mentioned, if it works out correctly, you can really just use those hummocks as like a shooting bench, pretty much.
Yeah,
so back on it, and
at this point, it's just like a wet, cold snow. You're by the ocean, so the humidity's there. So it's not one of those snows that you just dust off your jacket. It lays on you. And I remember, you have that snow that's laying on you. The wind's blowing. It's hard to see. I remember my scope kept getting caked with snow, and you're laying against a hummock, and you're sliding around. Your pack's sliding around. So eventually, I get set up on this deer. And I have like some recollection of exactly how it went down, but it was a one shot, one kill. He kind of stood up to where I could get a shot above the hummock, put one in him, and he flopped up over the next hummock and was down. It was as simple as these things get. And this was, a couple hours after we hit out of camp. This was not an all day affair. We were done. And this is a giant blacktail buck. I'm super excited about it. We do our thing. We take our pictures. We gut them. We put them in our packs, and that's it for that deer. And did you guys kill a deer the first day?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I shot mine on the first day as well, but if I remember right, it might have been after noon and a little bit after you had shot yours. We had set up kind of a snow canopy with trekking poles and a little tarp that Aaron had so that we could just glass around, because we were seeing tons of movement of deer throughout that morning and early afternoon, and finally had one pop up within 150 yards with, those blacktails. So it's just a beautiful white throat patch that, I don't know, it was one of those pictures in your mind that you'll never forget, that we were able to get in pretty close on it and get a nice shot. That fortunately for me was one shot down, and we were cleaning up a deer within a few minutes with Derek on looking around for bear just to make sure nothing was going to sneak up on us.
Yeah. Like I said, like the funny part about this trip is that the deer hunting while it was fantastic. We killed all 6 of our deer, and that was almost less than 3 days, right, Cole? 2.5 days? 3 days?
I don't recall. I think it probably had to be around 3 days or so. Your second buck, I recall, was pretty cool. Because I remember seeing that buck on a previous hunt that we didn't get with an archery hunter. And so that was super cool to see him again. He was pretty unique. And, when you took that buck, that was really cool. And then I remember, if you recall, he looked like a modern day Jeremiah Johnson coming out of the out of the mountains after. And I'll let you explain that. But
we killed that second buck. It was a very you could have replayed the first day and the second day. We hiked up to look over the same kind of hummock flat and saw this buck that you kind of known was in that area and made a stalk. I think I missed him on the first shot and then dumped him on the second shot, if I remember correctly. Yeah, I know there was more than one shot. Not that matters, but it was astounding how similar a spot we were in. We were, 500 yards or less, maybe even then, away from where I had killed the buck the day before. And so to me, this wasn't easy hunting because the conditions were awful. But there were foxes everywhere. We all had fox. We're all able to shoot, I think, 2 foxes each. Yep. And we shot this. We're taking pictures. Ben Potter's taking pictures of this deer. And once you start gutting a deer, that blood gets in the snow. That scent gets going around. These foxes are coming. There's cross foxes. What is it? Cross fox, silver fox, red fox. Is that right? Kind of what you see?
Yes.
Yeah, been in there. So a fox came rolling by, checking out the dead deer. I got my rifle out and smoked him about 100 yards. And then on the way out, I'm like, well, I want to get some camp meat. And there was a ptarmigan just hanging tight on one of these hummock flats. And I said, well, if I could shoot him in the head with my rifle, we can definitely have some camp meat out of this ptarmigan. And damn if I didn't pull my rifle up, put it on his head, and connect. Mm-hmm. So I felt I was going back to camp with a fox, a deer, and a ptarmigan on my back.
Now, hang on. I believe you shot 2 foxes.
Oh, I did. Yeah, I did shot.
One fox came up. I think the red fox came up first. You shot the red fox. And then the silver fox came up. And so you have to shoot the silver fox because he's the most prized. And so here you had 2 foxes, a ptarmigan, and a huge blacktail strapped onto your back. And I didn't even want to help you because I'm like, no, you have to carry all this because this looks super awesome. So We'll have to put that picture up All right, people
picture's
won't.
up
People will not believe it. Okay.
it was a Kodiak slam if there ever was one. That's for
Yeah.
sure. But I mean, I'm thinking here's Cole Kramer providing the ultimate adventure. The weather has been gnarly, but not awful. We're killing deer. I had tagged out and went essentially what amounted to 6 or 7 hours of hunting total, I would say, for the whole shebang. These are 2 giant blacktail deer. There's a double pedestal mount that the great taxidermist Chris Kamak made for us after this trip. It sat in my garage. It's now sitting in my office as I redo it. It's one of the more beautiful mounts, and when people see these 2 deer, they realize they're not mule deer. They're actually blacktail deer. They're often shocked. I mean, these are two beautiful bucks, man. And
As you know, the Meat Eater live tour is on April 23rd through May 5th. Chances are in a town near you. What you may not know is you can win tickets to each of these events just by going to a backcountry hunters and anglers pint night. There's going to be a pint night in each of these towns: San Diego, Salt Lake City, Tempe, Anaheim, Boise, Sacramento, Missoula, Portland, Tacoma, where you can compete in Meat Eater trivia and win not only tickets to the show, but a chance to be on stage with all of us. So get your butt to a pint night, and we'll see you on stage.
as you'll find out in a minute here, they're attached to great memories. But funny enough, like just the hunting was pretty, I didn't take any long, crazy shots. Everything kind of just seemed to fall in place, at least for me and you on that hunt with Ben as a photographer. And DJ, you and Derek had a great couple of days, right?
We did. I know I shot one that first day, and I don't remember. I think Derek shot his first either late that first day or that second day across the river again. But he made a nice shot on a buck that was, 100, 150 yards away, and in a great spot to get it clean back to camp within a couple of hours.
Yeah, and I'd like to point out that, that first day, if I recall, that first day it wasn't blowing super hard, but it was snowing pretty heavily, like you said. Yeah. And from that point on, the weather got pretty brutal. It was very cold and was either snowing or blowing every day. And we hunted every day. I don't think I don't think anyone, we never set out a day of hunting. It was like you say, three or 4 days, but it was brutal. The rest of the island, some people were on lockdown. There were nights that I know the one night we got over 80-mile-an-hour winds out there because the pilot said it blew over 80, and in town it clocked in at over 100.
I remember
so
that.
It was brutal, and we never did sit in the tents or anything. We were out hunting every single day. Yeah. And every day people brought in bucks, and I'm not DJ. Was that your buck or Derek's buck that the horns popped on?
That was Derek's. Yeah, they were dragging him around, and that horn popped off.
Yeah, I remember saying something to Aaron and kind of everyone, but maybe more towards Aaron. Hey, just be cautious. These horns could pop. I tend to see, like, once it gets pretty cold and brutal, it seems like their horns start popping easier. And I remember seeing the handful of horns come in, and I thought, oh,
that's it.
So someone must have popped one.
But we had some good.
Aaron's face when that antler popped off. Oh, he looked up and he saw Derek, and I thought he was going to start crying.
Oh man,
Aaron's the nicest guy, great guide, and he's been guiding for several years now, but that was still early on in his guiding career.
Yeah,
so to think that a client was going to yell at him for busting the horns off, but it happens. You can put him back on, obviously. But,
well, I remember a couple of nights where the wind was howling, but that second afternoon is when the wind got crazy.
Yeah,
and I think I might have stayed around Camp the Glass, and I remember Ben Potter was with me, and we were taking some photos, and it was so cold you could not. We were stepping out of, I think, DJ, this is when you shot your second buck, but it was so cold we were trying to take some photos and help clean some stuff up around camp and hiking up to some of the hills above us to glass, and it was so cold. If you took your glove off, it hurt immediately. I mean, it was rough.
DJ, I've wiped out a lot of our personal memories, but was that you? Was I with you on your second buck, or was that with Derek?
You were with Derek.
That's right.
On his second buck. My second buck, it was Aaron and I late that second day when Ben was in a camp. And we fortunately found one and shot one kind of down in a hole out of the wind, because otherwise, I don't know how we would have got that thing cleaned up in time.
I remember thinking, number one, how are you going to make a shot longer than 50 yards and not have a wind drift of 7 inches on any shot? And how are you gonna get a deer out of there? I mean, you couldn't even stand up at some point in the wind. So the first couple of days where it felt really nice, man, it turned quick. Like you said, when it started snowing, you could still deal, but eventually it just got so damn cold.
Yeah, I recall at that point, because that's right. It was Derek and I, and who else was that? Well, I think Potter was with me that day, and everyone. I'm trying to think here. When we shot his
Potter's
buck,
with you guys. Yeah, Potter's with you guys.
He Potter's with us, and because there's a group of us, and I recall we made a big circle around that flat that you got your buck on, or your bucks. And when we end up spotting this buck, it's like deer were just coming out in there to feed like cows. You know, they needed to get out or off the mountain. And I remember when he shot that buck, there was other bucks out there, and they didn't even care. They're just like, we have to feed. And it was so cold and so brutal, and we worked on that deer. And, it's so cold, and people in the mountains or colder areas, when you got to butcher your animals right there, as soon as you start skinning them, you put your hands on that warm carcass, like, because I remember my hands were frozen trying to work on that buck. But yeah, it got downright brutal, and I thought, man, this is good. Now I think at that point we had gotten all of our bucks, and I was thinking, okay, perfect. We got to get out of here. It's getting downright brutal. Because you can have bays and rivers and everything start freezing up. So I thought, it's probably good we're done, and tomorrow we'll start getting out of here, I guess.
Yeah, and we all felt. I felt great when we were packing up to leave, packing the rafts full of stuff. I mean, we had acquired what would now frozen $6 worth of meat. I mean, that's 40, 50 pounds of meat per animal, maybe even.
Oh no, it's 60.
It's less than that, 60, really?
Oh yeah, easy.
Plus the hide and the head and the antlers.
Yeah. No, it's a fair amount of meat per buck. Those are all older, mature bucks. So you're just so strong. So you think that it's...
no. I remember carrying a big load later on and just feeling like an alpha for the first time.
Right. You definitely look like the major alpha of the group.
Being an average height and all.
Yeah, right. Exactly. But because... well, here, I'll let you continue your story.
No, I mean, I remember feeling really good. I mean, even as an aside, like, it's my job to go there and collect certain things. We had gotten a bunch of great photos. We had tested the products we wanted to test. We had achieved everything. We had an awesome time. We had laughs. We ate deer meat every night after we had bucks in camp.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we're gathering in the cook tent. If you ever hung around Cole Kramer long enough, so you're not going to have a bad time hanging around camp, talking shit and joking. And it's as good as it could be. I mean, everybody toughed out the shitty weather, got it done.
Yeah.
And
well, that's the cool thing about those hunts that time of year. Like, pretty much once you get into, November, it's getting dark by 5, somewhere right in there. So you need to get back to camp. Typically, someone will be in the camp kind of getting it warmed up, and other guys will be out, hanging meat. So if I was in there getting water hot for hot drinks or food ready, Aaron would be hanging meat, or we'd switch off and, grab a couple of you guys. Hey, let's hang. We got to get meat hung up in trees and dealt with, to get everything locked down for the night. Make some rounds around the tent. Make sure nothing's going to blow away. All your guy wires are good. But, the fun thing is that time of year, like I'm saying, is, by 6 o'clock, got all your chores done outside, and And now it's you go in, you hang out in there, and sitting around the wood stove, blazing away, and everyone just sitting there hanging out, having a little drink, and talking about your day and plans to come.
Drying off your clothes. Remember, you sit in there, it's like steam coming off the sides of the tent because all your wet clothes are hanging around.
Yep.
There's this particular musk that comes from six wet dudes in a tent with deer meat and the Alaskan dirt all around. So yes, I remember that's to that point, it was an amazing trip. Like, we're getting out of there scot-free, I feel like, and I feel great about it. Where we load up these rafts, we had Aaron in his own personal little raft, right? And then Cole and I in a raft, and Derek and Ben and DJ in another. Is that right? I got that right?
I can't remember. Yeah, if it was 2 or 3 rafts or something.
I definitely
I think it was 3. Yeah.
These you got to picture these rafts are loaded down with gear, duffel bags full of gear, bags full of meat, skull caps, and all kinds of. You're looking at hides all strapped to the top of them. We look like we're pioneering the Oregon Trail at this point. We got heavy rafts.
Everyone's always amazed how much we can fit on there.
Yeah,
it looks overloaded, but and I remember thinking as we're loading those rafts, there's ice all on the edge of the river, and I kept breaking it down, and everything was icing over on the rafts, and water splashes up on there. Your waders are freezing. I'm like, man, we're gonna do it. This is great, because that day was a beautiful cold day. There wasn't much wind. I thought, this is perfect. This is our day, and boy, like you said, we got out of here scot-free. This is going to be great.
I was like giddy coming out of there on those rafts, man. I didn't do a bunch of rafting as DJ kept yelling to me that I wasn't pulling my weight. And Cole was like dragging our raft while I tried to paddle, and I felt useless. But even beyond that, I'll let you chime in there, DJ, what you were feeling on that day.
Yeah, I was surprised when you had a paddle in your hand. You just kind of forgot to use it. I don't know. Thankfully, you had Cole up front there pulling you around. Otherwise, you may still be back there right now.
Yeah, he was pulling me around, breaking ice, and I was just paddling along, helping him out.
Ben, I'm like, where are you paddling to, Ben? Like, that's not even a real paddle method kind of thing,
Left. I was just like splashing it around like a little kid does with a toy duck, or like with a rubber ducky in the bathtub.
I remember giving you a child's oar.
Yeah,
it was like, he really won't have much direction with this, but that's fine. We don't.
It was just a stick that you found on the side of the river. So yeah. Anyhow,
what were your feelings, DJ, though, when you were loading up that morning?
Oh man, I think the rafting was actually the highlight of the trip for me, because you've got this euphoria of sorts of filling out your tags, having a lot of fun. And you're like, all right, let's get on the water and let's head back to the lagoon to get picked up. And at times there's a little bit of river running, so you catch up a little bit of speed, and you kind of feel like you're in Colorado having to coordinate with your other boat mate or raft mate to go the right direction. So I was having a lot of fun, lots of sunshine that day, like you said. It was a beautiful day. And I know Potter got some great photos coming out of there too, because it was just like perfect conditions for the end of that trip.
Yeah, I remember feeling the same way. Like, the sun's hitting you. You've been cold. You kind of been working hard, but having fun. And, like, the feeling, it's not euphoria. Maybe that's overstating it, but you just feel like you're doing something. Like, you feel there's adventure in the air. Like, you are floating out the deer you just killed in Alaska. Like, it's the right setting to feel adventure, however you would describe it. But it's true. It sets it up perfectly.
For me as a guide, that's part of the whole trip for me. I like giving people a job to do and showing them that they can do it. And, for me up front, in the front raft, and then looking back and seeing you guys back there floating down, having a good time. We've got, deer all over the rafts, and I'm just thinking, man, these guys did a really good job. Everyone's done a fantastic job. Everyone got their bucks. Everyone worked hard. No one complained. Just recollecting the whole thing was just awesome to think. And then we float around this corner, and I was like, I've never seen that side channel froze over like that. That's
So then, we go from this euphoric state, little boys that play, to realizing that we are, I don't know, a mile and a half roughly from our end point at the lagoon.
we had floated for a while, then it breaks a couple different ways, and when I saw this side channel froze over, I thought, well, that's weird. Must just be right here. And so I started breaking ice and going through it. And I think then after a little bit, I thought, I better just go up on the side hill and I'll just climb up and look out this flat and see how far I have to break ice. And as I climbed the hill, it became fairly apparent to me that as far as the eye can see, period, it is froze over for miles. I mean, miles and miles and miles. And so that was, at this point in time, I kind of looked down and everyone's just, hanging out and, man, that's fun rafting, blah, 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 talking to each other. And I'm thinking, wow, I have to deliver this amazing news to them that I have never seen this happen before. Never, I have to come up with a plan to get everyone out of here now with all of this gear, all these deer, personal stuff, and we were supposed to fly out in a few hours.
Yeah, it's rather late in the day by that time, and we had spent the whole morning packing these rafts full of stuff, thinking we'd have to unpack them and make a camp.
Yeah,
and so I remember realizing it where you were off breaking ice, and the guys were behind me kind of talking. I was breaking ice with my little kitty oar that you gave me, and I broke the oar on the ice. And just as I broke the oar on the ice trying to break it, you came around the corner from your high point looking, and I could just see the look on your face. I was like, oh no, man. Because we all kind of knew what the implications were. The implications are however far we are from the pickup point is how far we need to get. And we have, I don't know what it's 1,000 pounds of gear, more than that. I mean, it's a lot.
A lot of stuff.
It's a lot. If you add that deer in there,
Yeah. So, I remember calling. I said, there's just zero chance we're going to make it out today. So, I had to call the pilot and let him know that we are not going to make it. Cancel the flights, and I have to come up with a solution to get everyone out of here. So, we had to set up a camp that night and come up with a plan. And it was kind of like, hey, we're just going to have to get up, guys, first thing in the morning. Everyone's going to put an entire deer on their back. It's all obviously butchered up and in game bags. But you're going to have your pack with the full buck a piece. And we were going to hike out the several miles to the pickup point, drop a load. Then we're going to have to hike all the way back up to our spot, grab more gear, and just start hiking back. And, you guys were up for the challenge. And so that's what we did. We got up early and started packing.
Yeah. I remember you don't get, I wasn't at the news. I wasn't too worried about it. DJ, do you ever feeling I feel like the spirits were good because we had to take the rafts down, do all the work to unload the rafts, do all the work of rebuilding camp to some extent to where we all had some structure to sleep in, cook a meal, try to make the plan for the next day. All of it feels rushed. But we still had pretty good spirits. We were still adventuring. We had done some hard stuff already. We knew we could get it done. Is that where your head was at, DJ?
Yeah, I would say that I know between Derek and myself, I don't think we were ready for the trip to end. So it was a little bit bittersweet when you're rafting down, having a good time, but you had such fun that you're kind of like, hey, this is all right. This is one more step in the adventure, and we get to hang around for a couple more days and have a little bit better of a story to tell. Unbeknownst to us, that wasn't the end of the story. Hell
no. If you would fast forward to the next night when we were in that tent, it was not the same attitude.
Well, now hang on. Don't pass over some story.
No, we're not going to pass over that, but we get to that the next night. But so we get up the next morning. We have all our gear, our waders, all our stuff our rifles, everything from the hunt, plus 2 deer each. Roughly 1 deer each after we split the deer up. and then a bunch of camp stuff. And Cole had planned like he could stash a good bit of the gear where we had made camp, mark it, and then come back later when everything thawed and grab that gear. That's the tents, the rafts, everything that's not essential to get out of there at that moment. But even with 2 trips, walking on what is a frozen beachhead, I guess at this point, like
the whole way down, you can't just walk on the bottom. It was all backed up because the lagoon was froze over. The fresh water was building up against all the slush, and everything started to freeze up, and so it backed up in the whole entire valley. So you could not walk on the flat of the valley because there was ice, like broken up ice and slush down in there, and it was super slippery. And so we had to side hill the whole way basically until we got out there and got out towards where you could kind of walk on a beach. And at that point, it was still very, very slippery. My thing was, it wasn't, I mean, as a guide, you're constantly worried about someone getting hurt. And that was my worry for someone because everyone fell. Everyone slipped on the ice. Everyone went down. I mean, we're talking everyone had, pushing 100 pounds in the back on the first load and also the second load. And so the first load we took out all deer and some gear. And when we got out there, we stashed it. And then we started hustling back to camp, back up several miles. We get up there and it's like load back up with your personal gear and anything else we can grab. And, these are still heavy packs because, you're planning on it being floated out. It's not like everyone just brought, 20 pounds of personal stuff. These are, full pangas full of gear per guy, plus some other stuff in your pack.
Oh, yeah.
Other things. And so then the second trip, we were hustling and it starts to snow. And I remember finally getting out towards the lagoon, and it's later in the afternoon now. It's pushing 3:00. You can only land on a high tide in there, and it wasn't fully high tide. They were going to come before the high tide, and there's certain channels you have to land in, otherwise you just can't land out there. And I remember kind of yelling at everyone because I was ahead of you guys, like, come on, we got to push, got to get out here. These guys are going to land if they come, but here it's starting to blizzard. And I'm thinking, oh man, we still have to push hard to get out there. Number one, to drop all of our stuff, but number two, we can't just get out there and the planes wait on us forever. And I may have to check the water levels and radio to them. And sure enough, here comes the plane, or two beavers coming in. And I honestly cannot believe that they're coming in this blizzard. Two of our buddies that are pilots here, beavers, coming in, flying in unison together, fairly close to each other so they can see each other where they're at. And for some reason, their stinking radios weren't working very well during that time period. And I remember yelling at them on the radio, like, can you hear me? Can you hear me? And they were asking me how deep it was. And, I'm only got knee-deep water, and these are beavers. And I was trying to tell them to go land further out than taxi up to us. But the snow started coming down so hard, and it's such a gloomy time period in early December as it is, they just really can't see that well. And I remember one of them saying, sorry, and I thought I heard him say, we got to go. And when they started, leaving, I was like, oh, man, up until this point, everyone's thinking, woohoo, we made it. They're going to come and land. We're going back to town. And as the beep, they I could make out when they said, sorry, man, we got to go. And I just thought to myself, holy crap. And so off they went. They had to go back to town because the snow was getting so heavy that they couldn't really see. And they knew that the water level probably wasn't quite high enough. If it was clear out, they could have landed in some tight little channels and then taxied up, but you just couldn't see anything. So it was way too risky. Plus, they're just worried about getting back to town. So they took off, and I had a genuine concern for their lives as well. But I just couldn't believe that they actually battled to get out there just to try to pick us up. So, yeah, as they turn around and go back towards town, here I see everyone like starting to group up and come up to me like, okay, what are they landing or what's going on? And I remember having to deliver the bad news to you guys, like, sorry guys, they had to go. And what were you guys thinking at that point?
Well, like I said, like as you're telling that whole story, like to go back to a little bit of how the day went. This is a full day of hiking, like a full day of side hilling. Yeah, from dark to dark with 100 pounds on your back. So there's a couple times. There's a photo of all of us like resting, taking a rest on I think the second trip back to the beach, where we look like the most depressed. We look like the most like a boy band that just lost their contract. Like it is not. It is not. It's not a happy time. Like maybe the first trip out there. So we walk a couple of miles side hill in ice for 2 miles. Eventually, we started putting on our. We got out our waders and just wore our waders because it was so ridiculous. So we got out there, we drop our packs, we have some food. We're still feeling pretty good, but by the time we get back to camp the second time, load up another 100 pounds, we were all kind of like reluctantly putting those packs back on, knowing what we had to do now. And by the time we made it out there, I remember how desperate I was to get that thing off my back when we saw the beachhead. Ben Potter made it before me, but I was chugging along. I was real confident that I was kicking ass. And I just remember you up there, him up there before me, and he's taking photos. And I'm feeling like a badass at this point, but I'm also desperate to get this damn pack off my back. And at that point, it was nice out. Like it was relatively okay. And then by the time Derek and DJ got up there, the snow started to drop into the freaking lagoon like you wouldn't believe. And there is one of the photos of the trip is a photo of you, Cole, wading halfway out, like nipple deep in the water, waving your hand up in the air.
I just said knee deep. You can't say it was nipple deep.
Oh, you said knee deep?
Yeah, I said knee deep.
I'll go waist deep, right in the middle somewhere, your nipples and your knees.
It wasn't that deep.
No, well, you were in the water.
I'm a fact checker.
There was great white sharks swimming around. You had just saved an old lady.
This narwhal came in there.
Yeah, no, it's crazy. There was a bear on a surfboard. You're out there waving to this plane. You got you could see how desperate the wave is. You got your radio in your hand trying to talk to him. And all that DJ, Derek, and the rest of our crew could do, and myself, is just kind of stand there and watch this and try to think of like what might happen. And it was cold, snowy, getting dark when we finally got the news that we had to get some of our stuff back on our backs and hike in the dark the 2 miles back to the tents.
It's further than 2 miles.
How many miles was it? I feel like it was
miles, man. No, it was like I think it was 4 miles.
4 miles.
Yeah.
So DJ, describe your feeling as you got the news?
I've often described you as like a little mountain goat, Ben. It seemed like you have this spark plug and ability to get through anywhere at any time. And I remember when the planes left, like you hear the hum and all of a sudden the hum's gone. That energy level completely lost. Like it just left us all, I think. And I remember that walk back was the slowest hike, I think, maybe of my life, because there was quite a bit of dejection of, oh man, okay, we got a few miles here to hike here in the dark. It's already sketchy as it is when it was light out, but yet now we got to find a way back, not get hurt, and then try to have some semblance of a meal before we nod off to sleep in a clustered little tent.
Well, and when that happened, when the plane left, I just remember turning to guys, say, "Sorry, guys." And from my point of view as a guide, this is typically the time period where you start hearing the grumbles and the swearing and just all the negativity coming out. And I said, "Guys, sorry, but we got to hike back up to where all of our camp stuff is. Grab just your personal goods that you need for the night. So sleeping bag, pad, and just your personal things. We're going to leave everything else right here where the plane can hopefully get us tomorrow if it doesn't, freeze up even more." And so we grabbed our personal stuff but as we were doing that, I just remember kind of looking around and I will tell you, to your guys' credit, not one of you guys said anything out loud negative or anything. Everyone knew they had a job to do. Everyone just loaded up what they needed, And, I know we were all thinking it inside, but at that point, I mean, honestly, that's the thing that being in the wilderness teaches you. You can't just lay down and say, I'm done, I give up. You can, but you're going to have a really, really shitty night. So, so everyone loaded up. They knew they had a job to do, and then we hiked our way back up. It took our time getting up there, and I think that night we just set up the one big tent, and we had all 6 of us just laid in there.
Yeah, I mean, it took us. It takes you hours. I mean, I don't know how many hours to get to go those miles to get back to the tent. But then the tent you have to put the tent back up. I don't know why I remember this as being the worst moment, but putting the tent back up, I remember being the most. And I as DJ was saying, I felt like on the pack out to get to the beachhead, I felt the most capable I've ever felt in my life. I'm like, man, we got 100 pounds on my back. Like, let's go, man. I feel good. I'm going to get this. Give me a Snickers bar and let's fucking get it. Like, I felt great. But I remember, like, returning back to the tent, having to put the tent back up somehow was just like in the cold, in the dark, was just such an insult to me, having to erect this tent again, and go crawl into it and eat like a mountain house meal and sleep 6 people all around the outside of this tent. Yeah. That was a low point. I think all of us were kind of like still laughing, still joking, and trying to make it good. Like you were saying, Cole, I was proud of the whole crew. Nobody flipped out. Nobody lost it. Everybody kept their heads, but nobody was like, we had such a good time prior to that. It was such a low feeling to not really know what was going to happen. Well,
and to put this in perspective for people, I mean, when you come up to Alaska, and it happens a lot of times where you break camp and the weather picks up and the pilot can't make it in. They call you and say, sorry, we can't do it, or they just don't show up. Okay. And then so you feel a little dejected and you put camp back up, and that's just the way it is. But it's a different level when you are dealing with extreme weather and having to hike hours back up to where your camp is, and then have to set it back up. It's a new level of just, I would say depression or whatnot that like literally hits you like, wow, we've already done 2 round trips. Now we have to do, hike all the way back up there and set up our big camp, and so it's not like you just go back to your lake edge, or whatever, and set your tent right back up. So that was, I've had to do that a billion times, but so that was definitely one of the rougher times to do that. But as a leader, you kind of just like, all right, guys, load your shit back up, let's go. And that's exactly what you guys did. So in my point of view, you guys did awesome.
Yeah,
I would say. And I think when we got back up there, everyone was, you just do what you got to do. You get in the tent, and everyone is stoked. Once you get in there, you put your pad down, get in your sleeping bag, get your meal. It does get people back in a better mood, right? And,
I think, it's funny. We sit now kind of we were talking about this in some other shows this week. You sit now in a weird kind of, I don't know, weak point for our society where we don't have the structure we're used to. We don't really have the services we're used to. Like, things are a little bit weird. And it's strangely analogous to being able to survive, or, we weren't like close to death or anything, but be able to conquer the things that we had to do out there those days, being cold, being tired, being hungry, but still, back hurts, shoulders hurt, 100 pounds on your back, being able to do those things in a place where there isn't any comfort around the corner. You can't walk in to a place with heat. Like, that's kind of weirdly useful right now. Because if you've done that, comparing to like not being able to go to Chipotle on a Thursday, who gives a shit? Once you've experienced something like this. So it's weird how it has its benefits in the situation we're in now, when we're simply being asked to sit in our houses. That's no big deal. But anyway,
for sure.
Anyway, we get up the next morning. I think we were all feeling a little bit better. I don't know if this had happened right away, but the worry was the tide would have been out so far by the time
Correct.
that the float planes would come back, that we would be in there for days longer until the tide came back up enough for us to get somebody to land.
Right. So what we had to do, because that was the whole thing that I had to think about. That day that the planes couldn't get us because of that situation, that was the last day that they could actually land in there for a few days, several days, and with the tide on floats, because the high tide would come in the dark. These are extreme tides in Kodiak, and so I was thinking that night, okay, well, now the hurdle is seeing if these guys can get their wheel plane lined up to where they can land on this beach that they have never landed on before. And so, trying to set up those logistics with those guys, and it's going to be multiple loads with this plane with all of us and the deer and our gear and everything. So they we got the plan put in place, and woke up the next morning. This time, I recall we actually loaded up the base camp tents, everything, and these are, the tents alone are 50-pound tents. One of them's a good 60 pounds or so. So this time we actually took our camp down there. We just didn't have the room the first time, or the second load that we went down there. There's just no room. You weren't packing these monster tents. So, but the next day we just had those strapped on. 3 of us had tents, or maybe we just took 2 of them down there. But regardless, we loaded up what we needed to stay overnight down there if we had to. Now we were prepared to do that, right? But as luck would have it, the day was good. Everyone loaded up. We were all heavy again going down there, and I don't know how long the whole process took, but we got down there to our beach. I remember there was all sorts of ice lining the beach, and we had to break ice and get all of those chunks out of there because I didn't want our pilots landing and hitting ice chunks with the propellers or their wheels, and because we also had a wind blowing back on shore. Yeah. And there was a bank there I didn't want them getting pushed into. So it was once we got there, we still had a lot of work to do to prep that beach for the guys and make sure there's no big rocks and stuff for them to hit. And once our pilot got in there, it was all work for him, and he was doing a great job. And we had another pilot staged in another village by there that he was just, landing and dropping loads off, and he was coming directly back. And I don't know how long that took, but several hours altogether.
Oh, I mean, I remember there's a bunch of that stuff, like getting to the beachhead for, what essentially is the 3rd time round trip. Felt amazing. We had lunch, we cleared the beach off, we took a bunch of photos. It felt good. Like, that felt like it was over.
Yep.
But it was still sketchy. I think we were maybe just tricking ourselves at some point. The pilot, he deserves credit. I can't remember his name.
It's Keller.
Keller, yeah. The one of the crazy brothers from earlier in the story. You said at some point, I think he's going to bring a wheel plane in here. Because we had discussed, man, they might have to airdrop some pizzas to us if we got to stay in here for 2 or 3 more days.
Let's clear that up. We had 6 deer we could eat, so we didn't necessarily
I know, but we needed some junk food. They might have. How we're gonna have? We need Pepsi. That's one thing we figure. You got plenty of food, but at the time, it's like you're cautiously optimistic. It was a nice day. It was a very nice day that day.
Colder than hell, but it was nice compared to what we'd had.
I know.
Yep.
So yeah, we felt that there was no snow. It was windy. I do remember that too, and there were some cold moments. But I'll let you talk a little bit. But I remember there's a photo of us all holding our bucks on the beachhead once we by the water there. Once we kind of had already cleared the beach for the plane to land, and it was really the culmination of an adventure. Trying to stand there and watch this wheel plane go around and come back and go around, and just the anticipation of those wheels touching the dirt and the rocks was huge. DJ?
I don't remember, at some point, Cole or someone said, all right, who's going on this first plane? And my name came up, and I was like, hell yeah, I'm on this first plane, because I don't know if another plane's going to get back in here.
And I was like, well, let's throw the most dispensable guys we have on the first plane in case he crashes.
The other
And
Kansas guy? Yeah, let's get the other Kansas guy out of here.
I'll take care of Kansas if he leaves.
Well, so here's one of my favorite parts of the whole trip, like the favorite moment. Now that happened where the plane finally lands. We can only get all but 2 of us on the plane. I think it was.
I think I put you 3 guys on there. I recall, right? Is that
That was
correct?
me and you stayed back, Cole. But there was a moment of negotiation where you're like, well, who's going to go and who's going to stay? Because you don't know. They're ferrying us back to a small town, a small, I think, fishing town, fishing village. It's just like
village.
7 structures in a landing spot. But we're some small area. Anyway, there was a chance that who knows? I mean, the weather could change, and the 2 people left behind could be left behind for some time. We didn't know. And so Ben Potter, the camera guy, was DJ gets on, Derek gets on, and then Ben looks at me and he's like just wanting me to say something. And I was like, dude, I planned this trip. I got us into this. I'll stay with Cole. I don't care. And he hugged me. He hugged me like I never been hugged in my life. Like he didn't want to say.
He was like on a big. Like, he had to leave and go somewhere else immediately as well. There was some sort of major commitment that he had. He was worried about that, but everyone's obviously stoked just to get out of there.
No, I mean, he admitted to me later on. He's like, he had to go film a waterfowl thing that he had been planning for months, years, whatever. And he needed to get out of there. But I know what DJ said is right. Like, it was getting on that plane. So, yeah, Cole and I got to sit back. We'll watch you guys take off. And then swung back around and picked us up, and we ferried.
I think there was 3 trips because I know I was there.
Oh yeah, no, there was 3 of us. Me, you, and Aaron stayed back.
Yeah, I think you and Aaron went next, and then I stayed back
That's
there.
Right. That's right.
And then came out the end.
That's right. Now we finally all got back there. DJ, I'll let you try to tell this. Wasn't there on the flight back? Maybe Cole, you remember? There was an old lady that had a goose in one of the planes.
Yeah, that was the plane I took from the village back to Kodiak, where we loaded up with, I don't know, maybe 6 people total in that plane. I was up front with the pilot, but there was a goose that was honking the entire way back to Kodiak with a young woman, an old man. Like, it was quite an eclectic group in there to get to know on that short trip back.
That was one of my favorite parts of the whole trip. Like, there's just little moments in a story like this where you could make this up if you tried. Like, you're flying back to Kodiak with a bunch of old, random people and a goose. And it's like, after all we've been through, trying to get out of here. Like, I was genuinely proud of our group of guys that nobody cracked. Nobody made it harder. Everybody was up for whatever challenge. Cole would never say this, but he's not only one of the better outdoorsmen I've ever met, but a leader, a true leader. Sets the tone, works his ass off, makes sure people know what they have to do. Like, that's a huge thing. And we're not in some survival situation. This isn't some Discovery Channel show, but it was hard, and we did have to do some hard things to get out of there and get back to Kodiak. So you don't want to overplay the situation, but it takes all those things for it to work.
Yeah, no, and thank you. I appreciate the compliment. But that's what I've had several benchmarks in my career, whether it be sheep hunting or a mountain goat hunt or deer hunt or bear hunt, and like the type of stalks you do and the physical benchmarks you set on these hunts, and I've had some really crazy things happen throughout the years, trying to hike out or get to a plane or whatever. But that was a pretty good, mentally and physically exhausting end to the trip, I would say, and just dealing with the amount of people. It's not just one person; there's 6 people, and so yeah. Once again, you guys did a great job, and it's just the thing is, and And I think people going through this time right now, I think this is the first time that people have ever, like, there are a lot of people, this is the first time that they've ever had to go through something of this nature, which is the first time for all of us to be in a quarantine situation, right? Kind of thing. And social distancing. And it's, for me, nothing's changed up here. I'm doing my daily life of I just kind of stick to myself anyways here in Kodiak. But it's times like you said earlier, looking back to these hunts and the things that we do as hunters and the luxuries that we don't have out in the field, and the things that we put ourselves through, I think it really, really pays off. And it's just the petty things you see people freaking out over during these times. I think it makes us outdoorsmen shine a little bit on what, if we're able to be a leader and step up to your family or friends and say, no, it'll be okay. We've got this. We've got meat in the freezer, and maybe there's friends that don't have the meat and they're freaking out, and you're able to share with other people and whatnot. But I think all that, what we went through, and like, I know it definitely helps for times like this,
I think it does too. It may seem trite at some level to say that, but it is true. I mean, I've been lucky enough to go on some adventures with Cole at some of the hardest days of my life. We're trying, and I'm voluntarily going out there and doing some things that really test every part of you. And once you have that perspective on what hardship really is and what overcoming, very, very, when somebody puts a 100-pound pack on you and says, march 4 miles that way on the ice, there's a lot of reactions you can have. And one of them could be like, nope, not doing it. You're going to have to do double trip, Cole. I didn't pay for this. Yeah, your job is to get me out of here. Or you can say, nope, no problem. I will make it happen as quick as I possibly can. Let's go. And that's, I've seen it in other people during this, I don't want to call this quarantine a crisis, but an uncomfortable situation where you can either say like, oh my gosh, look at all the stress I have and all the things that are changing around me. Or you could say like, I'm going to get up every day and do the best I can to make this the best day possible, regardless of the situations I can control and can't control. So it's weird how these kind of things all smash together, but I'll let you say some words, DJ, about what you think on this subject. But I think for me, as a hunter, when you go through these experiences, they never really stop returning to your life. Like they come back all the time, in weird little ways, little idiosyncrasies within your life where you can call on these adventures and still draw from them what you've learned. This is just another example of that. DJ?
Yeah, I remember coming back on that trip, or from that trip, just thinking how simplified life was when you're out for several days and you're at some point, you're not sure exactly when you're going to get home, but it's pretty simple. You wake up, you hike somewhere, you try to hunt something for food, you're sleeping at night, you have kind of this communal aspect of hanging out with friends. It's like the perfect setting. So those situations like we're in now, life is kind of simplified right now. And I don't know, I always find comfort in that, because when you're outdoors or you're outside or you're hunting or whatever, life gets pretty simple. And I don't know, I just have a lot of positive feelings or positive memories from this trip and other trips where I draw upon when things get a little bit crazy here at home.
Yeah, I mean, we'll all share this forever, man. Like those experiences. That sounds a little over dramatic, but we will, man. We'll be able to call back on this experience together when we see each other. We all live in different places, but that'll never go away. And so, it might seem like the worst part of the hunt was when we hit that ice, that frozen river, but in the end, I think it's the best part, because when we tell this story, it's not, I got these giant deer, thanks to Cole, that are hanging in my house here, but in regards to the work I had to do to get them, most of the work laid on Cole's intellectual property of finding them and knowing where they were and being able to take me to them. All I had to do was make the shot. And so I don't look at those and think like I'm some great hunter, but I do look at those and think, man, what an experience, what a thing. And those become emblematic of that. transformation in a way. So I don't want to overstate any of this shit. It's a hunt. We had some troubles, but I
think it's all building blocks. So I think every adventure is a piece of the puzzle of life, of how you're made up, and how you handle things. So everyone, I think, was, whether you wanted it or not, everyone gets slightly changed by those situations for the, mostly for the good. DJ, did you have some issues after that hunt? I can't remember.
Yeah. I mean, the river never froze over or never freezes over. No one ever gets sick. But I came home and had some stomach bug for maybe a month or longer. I don't remember how long, but Cole, I got stronger from it.
Yeah, right. And and that's the thing. What that was, I don't know, because I know I wasn't sick, and I don't know if anyone else was. But I was. I honestly wasn't sure what it was that got you, and I couldn't remember.
I don't think it wasn't Giardia or anything like that. I don't think.
No,
it was some
wasn't.
Some other.
It was some type of. Yeah, it was some type of gluten sensitivity or whatever. So. Well,
remember. I think Potter was. Remember we were like, I think you're gonna make us gluten free, because he's gluten free, and so we were like, man, don't spread it to us. Okay. Oh, is this? Do you feel gluten free now?
Yeah. Oh my gosh, are you feeling gluten free?
He infected me. He infected me.
Yeah, exactly. I think
that's true.
You must have touched him.
We have so many, there's so many inside jokes that no one would find funny, but like the lip zips commercials we were doing. Ben Potter's like, I'm here. I'm sponsored by Lip Zips, which, if you guys don't know, is an outdoor chapstick company branded towards hunters. He had what he had. I'm here sponsored by Lip Zips. I got my spicy watermelon flavor.
Yeah,
like little things like that, man.
But I had honestly no clue that this company actually did exist, and I'm not saying anything bad about them. They're a great company.
Not a sponsor.
Don't know anything about them, but I remember hashtagging that a couple times, and then someone actually liked my comment from Lip Zips.
Oh, I remember.
Whoa.
In the months,
I messaged him like, "This is real. I had no clue."
In the months after this trip, we were hashtagging everything Lip Zips, and Lip Zips noticed that and started sending us messages like, "Hey, we'd love to send you some product." Like, well, no, I don't think I can take your product. This is all a joke. Sorry, Lip Zips. Much respect out there to Lip Zips.
Yeah.
We love you. You're keeping those lips chapped and moist in this hard time, I'm sure. Well,
regardless,
man,
it was an awesome trip with you guys. You guys did a great job. It was super cool for me, because I recalled that was really cool, because that was when you were working for Yeti, and I felt really proud of you guys when the adventure finally got over. You guys finally got on your airplane and left. I just remember thinking, man, this was pretty awesome. These guys did a great job, and I was pretty proud.
Just to close it out, like if do you want to know what delicious sushi tastes like, or what real delicious, how amazing a Snickers bar can taste, or what a shower can really feel like, or any of the many things that you take for granted, go out and get your ass kicked by Kodiak Island, or in our case, Cole, maybe even Nepal, the Himalayas. Yeah. Like, if you want to really appreciate the things you have in life, you have to erase them from it for some time. It is essential to who we are. And so, we wrote about this on MeatEater.com this week. Hunters and anglers and outdoorsmen and adventurers are well suited for any challenge, let alone sit-at-home quarantine. So hopefully everybody listening to that can take something from this story and go on with your day and have been entertained by our hardship. So thank you, Cole. Thank you, DJ.
Thank you. Thanks, DJ. Thanks, Ben.
See you guys. Love you.
Love you too. We'll see you.
See you, bud.
That's it. That's all. Hell of a story. Hell of a time. Two of my very best people in the freaking world right there, DJ Bell and Cole Kramer. One of the best things about this for me, Phil, is that I get to tell stories with some of my best buds about hunting. And that's one of my favorite things to do. That's a the ultimate distraction from all the stuff going on in the world right now. So
yeah, you're taking lemons and you're turning them into
lemonade. Lemons to lemonade.
We got it.
THC Daily Quarantine-Cast. So hopefully by now you are thinking of the great hand turkey contest. You're looking at your hand. You're thinking of what your hand could become, what kind of turkey it could turn into, what kind of legend it could be. You're thinking of exciting ways to get creative and impress me and Phil T. Engineer here. So Phil, as we get into the weekend, I assume everybody's going to be going out and drawing their hand turkeys. What are you expecting to see come Monday when we return?
Well, it's gonna. You set a high bar with the poems and the drawings of me, and the podcast ideas. It's. I don't know. Do you think that those can be surpassed with imagination and
I don't
ideas?
know. I am drunk both on White Claw and on contests.
How many Clementine White Claws have you had today?
More than 3, less than 5.
All right, I just want to tell the listeners that it is not yet 5 o'clock here.
No,
as
it's
we're
4:37. I've
right.
had 4. They're 70 calories, man. There's 0 sugar. They're gluten free. Only a hint of clementine flavor. So
yeah. Well, I'm about to make a trip to the local co-op, trying to support local grocers at this time. Wish me luck. Maybe I'll. I don't know. They probably don't sell White Claw at the co-op. I don't know. Maybe I'll check
absolutely
it out.
they do. That's one of my favorite White Claw dispensaries. Absolutely.
Oh, okay. White Claw dispensary. I like it.
You'll find it there. They'll happily sell you some claw. Don't worry. And I would expect you to be 4 deep by 4 o'clock tomorrow, because it's a Saturday. So good luck. Good luck to you this weekend, Phil.
Thank you.
I don't think we should talk. I think we should quarantine ourselves from each other.
I've never heard a better idea. Can't wait.
That's perfect. It's perfect. I feel the love coming from you and coming from all you listeners. You have a good fucking weekend. Thanks for joining the Quarantine Cast. We will see you Monday. Bye-bye.
Bye. The Hunting Collective with Ben O'Brien is a part of the Meat Eater Podcast Network. It is produced by Corinne Schneider and engineered by Phil Taylor. You can find it on iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, themeateater.com, or anywhere podcasts are downloadable. Wherever you listen, leave a 5-star review and subscribe.
As you know, the Meat Eater live tour is on April 23rd through May 5th. Chances are in a town near you. What you may not know is you can win tickets to each of these events just by going to a backcountry hunters and anglers pint night. There's going to be a pint night in each of these towns: San Diego, Salt Lake City, Tempe, Anaheim, Boise, Sacramento, Missoula, Portland, Tacoma, where you can compete in Meat Eater trivia and win not only tickets to the show, but a chance to be on stage with all of us. So get your butt to a pint night, and we'll see you on stage.